All right, everybody, welcome to week number 5 of our Lowrance live webinar series. We're going to spend some time tonight talking about Elite Ti2, but a couple of things first. We want to make sure everybody's using the hashtag AnglersUnite when you're posting any fish pics or anything you're doing over this quarantine period, out on the water. It's been a lot of really good coverage with our hashtag AnglersUnite. I also want to mention that we have product experts online in the live chat right now to answer any questions you guys have. They will also be feeding those questions live to me for the Q&A session later on, so get your questions in and we'll make sure and get them answered. We also have posted all of the previous week's webinars on the page you're watching down below. So if you just scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see the other 4 weeks of webinars posted there already. But for tonight, we're going to focus mainly on Elite Ti2, and we're going to run through, I'll show you everything that comes in the box. We're going to do quite a bit of install, best practices, that kind of stuff, and then we'll actually have a play around with the Ti2s here. So let's start with, let's just open a box up and see what all comes in. So this is a 9-inch Elite Ti2. And when you open it up, first thing you're going to see right out of the gate is your screen, your Elite Ti2 of your chosen screen size. This here is a 9. We'll come back to that in a second. We're going to actually mount that on this RAM bracket here. Pull out a little divider we have to hold everything in place, and you'll see a little pack. This has got your gimbal knobs and your fuse block in here. Then we have the mount. This will be a little bit different size for a 7 or a 12, or for a 9 or a 12, I'm sorry. The 7 actually uses a different one altogether. It's our quick release system. I've already got one mounted up here, so we'll put this one back in the box. A couple of decals for your boat or your truck. All of your install manual stuff, so we'll have a quick guide in here. We'll have the actual full manual and the mounting template as well. And then the key piece will be the transducer, which I've already got mounted on this Hobie kayak. So it's already down there in the Lowrance ready plate. So when you hook up your Elite Ti2, first thing you want to do is get your gimbal knobs out of the bag. So it'll just go, it'll be pretty easy install. There'll be a power cable in there as well. It's a little bit different power cable if anybody watched the Lowrance HDS webinar a couple of weeks ago. Jeremiah talked about the power cable and the yellow wake-up wire and all that stuff. Ti2 comes with a little bit of a different power cable. It is the exact same connector as an HDS. You can kind of see it here. It is the same connector, so it will plug into an HDS, or if you're coming from an older HDS Gen 1 or a Gen 2 or a Gen 2 Touch, something like that, it will plug right into the back of your Ti2 as well. It just doesn't have the yellow wake-up wire to wake up other remote devices, since we don't have any of that compatibility on Elite Ti2. So when you power it on, oh yeah, there'll also be a sun cover in here, and a nice little plastic bag to keep it nice and clean for you. These are sun covers, and they're meant to keep the sun off of it, keep it protected from the elements, that kind of stuff when in storage. You are probably going to lose one if you trailer it with if you trailer your boat with it on there. So just a quick little note about that. But once you power it on, you'll see the splash screen come up, and then you'll basically end up in this setup screen here. But before we get into actually pressing some buttons, let's talk about what an Elite Ti2 is and what it does. So if you've seen any of the other webinars, you've heard that in Lowrance we kind of run a good, better, best product lineup. So we have the hook reveal, which we gear really towards our entry-level anglers, guys on smaller boats, kayaks sort of like this, those level of boats. We step up from there to Elite Ti2. You're going to pack in some more features and some more power over a hook reveal, things like touchscreen, and we'll talk more about some of the other little networking stuff it can do as well. That'll be for a kind of a middle-range boat, maybe your 18, 19, 20-foot bass boats, bigger kayaks. So this Hobie Pro Angler is generally only got one on it, but we hooked up 2 for a reason, to show some networking stuff. But then we step up to HDS Live, which we covered in the last couple of weeks of webinars, and I'm sure we'll get to another one eventually. But HDS Live has got everything, right? It's the biggest, baddest fish finder on the market. So those are some of the key differences and what you might be looking for between one or the other. But when you move up from if you're trying to decide between a hook reveal or an Elite Ti, so some of the things to look for are an Elite Ti2 has got a touchscreen, so it's really easy to kind of fly through some of the menus, that kind of stuff. Whereas hook reveal is going to be all run by the buttons. There's a few more options in regards to networking. Hook reveal doesn't really have any of that. You'll get active imaging in an Elite Ti2, which is our super high resolution side scan and down scan. And then wireless networking, which I'll show you guys actually how to set a network up in a minute. That's why we have 2 on here. So once you get it all set up on your boat, like I said, when you power it on the very first time, you'll get this select language screen. So you just pick whichever language you want. I want United States English, so I'll hit yes. It'll pop up the accept screen. This is, you just hit yes. And then it'll ask you if you want to register. So you can register it now or you can register it later. But really importantly is it popped up this little box right here that says auto source selection will be performed. If I have any devices on my boat, make sure you have them plugged in and ready to go right now, especially like a sonar transducer. This is where this Elite Ti2 is going to go out and look for its data sources. So if you've got a transducer, you want to make sure it's already plugged in. That way when it goes out and looks, it'll see the temperature, it'll see the depth, and it should just go ahead and automatically grab it as soon as you hit OK. I've seen a lot of guys hit cancel on this one, and then as soon as they get into start using their display, they wonder why their depth shows the 3 little dashed lines or the temperature does that. And it's because you haven't pointed your display at where you want your source to come from. So if I hit OK, it kind of looks like nothing is happening, but I promise you it's going out and it's looking for everything it can find. But now once I've got it past there, now it'll bring me straight to my chart screen. And you can see here, we're sitting in the garage here just outside of Tulsa. And I can look at any lake I want to on the map. It'll take you to, as long as it's got a GPS signal, it'll take you to wherever it picks your signal up at. Couple other things. So we do have a smaller simplified keypad on the side over here. So this has got all of your key buttons you're going to want to press a lot, basically. So you got your power key. So this will be turn it on and turn it off, but it also hides a little system controls menu. So if you just tap it, it'll bring you up this little pop-up here that'll let you do things like put it in standby mode. If you're on a boat and you've got maybe one Elite Ti2 at the console and one at the front, and you know you're going to be fishing up at the front for the next hour and a half, whatever, you can put the one at the console in standby, and that'll shut the display off, but it'll keep everything else running. So all your waypoints will still show up, that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like a low power mode. You can also adjust the brightness or put it in night mode or power it off from there as well. But in addition to that power key, there's also your pages key. This is kind of like your home button on your phone, right? You press that and it'll take you straight to your home page where you can pick whatever panels you want to. We'll get more into those in a little bit. There's also some quick zoom keys. So if I press the plus, it'll zoom in, and the minus, it'll zoom out. So I can do that right from the display, so I have that nice feedback instead of doing it straight from the screen. There's also a waypoint key. So this one is really important. We put this one out on its own for a reason. Waypoint is probably like the most important button you can have, right? So this is how you'll mark your spots. You can anywhere on the map, you press that little waypoint key, and it'll pop up the waypoint menu. And you can type a name in here. You can change the icon. You can even put some notes in here if you want. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with waypoints. So those are the buttons on the side. One of the questions I get a lot on Elite Ti2 anyway is about the SD card slot. So I've had a few guys come to me and say, well, my Elite Ti2 doesn't have an SD card slot. Yes, it does. Every Elite Ti2 has got an SD card slot. And there is a micro card slot, and it's right under the Lowrance logo here. So we put this cool little sticker on here that kind of shows an SD card, so you know that it's there. What I have to do is lift up on the L in Lowrance, and the first few letters will pop up, and now you can see the card slot sitting right under here. This is a pressure push waterproof card slot, so when you press the logo back down, it sucks down in there and waterproofs it, so you don't have to worry about water getting in. But it's kind of a cool little hidden SD card slot. So transducers. So this, like I said, this Hobie has already got the active imaging down in the Lowrance ready underneath. But you can buy an Elite Ti2 either with no transducer if you've got a boat that you're going to retrofit back to the transducer that's on it. The 7-inch you can get with active imaging 3-in-1, so side scan, down scan, and your chirp sonar, or you can get it with an HDI transducer. So that's just down scan and traditional, no side scan and an HDI. Or you can buy the 7 or the 9-inch with the 3-in-1 transducer as well. All the displays will run any of those 3 transducers. So if you buy an HDI and maybe you're not sure if you need side scan or not, and you decide later you want to upgrade to it, all you have to do is add in an active imaging and you'll be able to get it. We talked about the bracket knobs. We talked about the power cable. So let's just get into pressing some buttons and see what's what. So like I said, this home button here is kind of your, like I said, I like to think about this as my home button on my iPhone. You know, like back when we used to have before they unlocked with our face, right? But you press that and it'll take you right to your home screen. And here you can see any of my different apps that I can switch between at any time. And I like to kind of think of this as 3 different pillars. I like to, so you have your pillar on the left over here is where all your settings and files stay. The center is where I've got my main apps, and then over here on the right is where I can set up any of my splits. So let's just talk about settings real quick. So if I press this gear up here up top, that'll take me right to my main settings menu, and here is where I can set up any of my main features, any of my main networking kind of stuff. So if I want to see my key beeps, you know, I can make them louder or quieter. If I want to check on how good my satellite connection is, I can click satellites right there, and it'll show me everything about it. There's also the about screen here. So if I ever need to know what software version is in my Elite Ti2, I can just press that about button right there, and it'll tell me exactly what software my Ti2 is running. It'll even tell you the screen size and serial number, all that kind of stuff as well. Also in here is things like the sonar menu. So this is where I can check my sonar installation if I need to adjust my temperature up or down. If I want to set my depth offset for my transducer, I can set that here as well. That's pretty easy. I just tell it how many feet up or down I want to apply. But really what we want to get to in here is network. So I mentioned earlier that when you power it on, you get that auto configure button, and that actually is in here. So if you ever want to force an auto configure, you can just click that right there, and you'll see it's the same box that we had from earlier. So as soon as I hit yes, it's going to go out and look. But if I ever want to change what a data source is, I can go in here and I can manually pick them all out. Now I don't have this Elite Ti2 networked to anything, so you won't see anything else. But in here I can pick whatever data source I want for my Elite Ti2. So if I had, say, a 0.1 antenna for heading and GPS, and I had that NMEA 2000 in, I can pick that 0.1, and so that way I know my heading and I know that my GPS are coming from there rather than from the GPS antenna in the display. It's little simple things like that. Let's get this one past all this stuff so we can talk about wireless networking. So one of the coolest things that an Elite Ti2 can do is actually wireless networking. So since we designed Elite Ti2 for kind of smaller, less sophisticated systems, we can actually share some of the data between multiple Elite Ti2s wirelessly. So if you've got, again, that 18, 19, 20-foot bass boat or walleye boat, and you've got a display, all the way up at the front by the trolling motor, and another one back at the console, you can actually wirelessly, without any Ethernet cable or anything between 2 Elite Ti2s, share your sonar data, any chart cards, or any waypoints you have directly from one to the other. And that's pretty simple. All you have to do to set that up is come back in here to your settings menu and go to your wireless. And then right here you'll see it says connect with another Elite Ti2. So I'll press that, and then I'll press the same button on this other one back here. So now it's going to ask me which one do I want to be my base unit and which one do I want to be my remote unit. You can have either one in either place. It's just setting up which one is the main display. So I'm going to say this one is the base unit, and it's going to restart the Wi-Fi module. And then I'm going to go to this one here, and I'm going to say this second button says I've already chosen a base unit, make this a remote unit. So as soon as I click that, it'll restart the Wi-Fi module on that one. and now it'll pop up. This one will go out and look for this base unit. So you'll see it'll pop this box up here, and there's this Elite 9, so I'll click that, and now they'll be connected together. So whenever I go to my, like to a sonar panel, I will see a source button that will allow me to switch the source, there it is, switch the source from either display. So right now they're both looking at themselves. But I can source this one to look at the sonar on this side, or I can source this one to look at the sonar on this side. So I can see either sonar in either place. Additionally, I can also do a sonar split screen. And now I can have this side of the screen looking at my network sonar, and this side looking at the sonar coming directly from this display. So I can even look at the two sonars side by side, which is really cool. And again, that also shares chart cards, so I only need to buy one CMAP or Navionics or one of our other provider chart cards, so I don't have to buy two anymore. And it also shares waypoints as well. So if I drop a waypoint on one display, it'll push it across to the other one. And all of that is Ethernet level type stuff. So what's the difference between an Ethernet network and a NMEA 2000 network? You kind of think of Ethernet as kind of your picture data, and you can think of NMEA 2000 as your number data, effectively, is the way I like to think about it. So Ethernet is going to be any kind of big, heavy stuff. So your actual sonar picture, a chart card, things like that. NMEA 2000 is going to be little small stuff, like a heading from a 0.1 antenna, just the heading data or just the GPS data. That's the difference between Ethernet and NMEA 2000. So now that I have these all set up, really I'm ready to go fishing. There's not much else I have to do. If there's some other configuration I want to do, there's a few cool things I have access to just from the home screen here. So I showed you a little bit of how to do a chart plus chart, or a sonar plus sonar, sorry, split screen. So all I have to do if anytime I want to see two things is press and hold whichever one I want first. So if I want my chart first, now I'll get a pop-up with all my other available splits. So if I want to see my chart and my downscan, I'll just click plus downscan, and it'll pop right up right there. Let's actually go turn the simulator on so we can see some sonar data. So now that I have that set up, you know, I can get to any of those quick splits at any time. So any side by side I want to do, all I have to do is press and hold whichever one I want, and it'll give me whichever one I hold plus anything else. But let's say I want to build something more than that. Let's say I want to do maybe even 3 windows, or let's say I want to do not side by side. That's where everything on the right-hand side over here comes into play. So I have, right out of the box, I have a few split screens ready-made for me. So you see a chart and sonar, a chart and side scan, a sonar and side scan, and a sonar, side scan, and down scan already. So if any time I want to see any of those, I just click that one, and it comes right up. If I want to set my own, all I have to do is press this plus button here, and that will let me create any of my own split screens that I want as a favorite. So let's say I want to set up, I'll set up like I have it set up normally. So I'll throw a side scan in here, I'll throw a chart in here, and I'll also throw a traditional sonar in here. So this is pretty good. If I just press save on this right now, it's going to give me the whole half of the screen this way, my side scan, and then it's going to stack my chart and my sonar on the other side. But maybe I want my sonar on top of my chart, or I want my sonar as my full screen. All I have to do is drag whichever one I want to whichever space I want it in. But I can also customize the actual splits as well. So if I click this drop-down box here, I can change between how I actually have it laid out. So let's say I wanted all 3 vertical. So I can click that one there. So now I have 3 equal vertical panels of all 3 technologies. Or I can choose to have one set all the way across the bottom and 2 things across the top. And this is actually the way I like to run mine, except I'll put my side scan down on the bottom. The reason why I do that is because side scan is kind of a wide data format to begin with, right? You're looking however many feet to the left and however many feet to the right. So you want a lot of screen space horizontally to be able to see whatever you're looking at. So as soon as I hit save, it's going to take me right to that panel that I just built. So here you'll see my side scan all the way across the bottom like we were just talking about, my chart and my traditional sonar. And that stays saved for me anytime I go to my home button. So anytime I press that home key, that one that I set up is going to be right there. And I can save a whole bunch of these. You can keep going. You can put a whole bunch down the list. You can also press and hold any of these to edit them. So if I know I don't ever want to see this chart and sonar split screen, I just click the X right there and it deletes it away from me. Or if I want to edit one I have in here, I click the wrench, and now I can come in and I can customize this back with anything that I want. So once I have that all set up, there's still a few more things I can do. Let's say I want to see more of my side scan history. Well, I can actually move where the panels break, and so I can put the line between them in different places. So if I tap that power key and get back to that system controls, I see this one right here that says adjust splits. So when I press that, that gives me this bar right here, and I can grab this circle and I can readjust the size of any of these. So if I want to see more side scan and less chart and maybe more sonar, let's say. So now I can move this up so I see more of my side scan history. I'm going to have a wider sonar history and a smaller chart. So now when I hit save, it'll take me right to that panel that I just made. And I can even take this sidebar menu and slide it off the screen in order to get even more width across. So now I'm actually using the full 9 inches of the screen size here. So let's talk about each one of these panels kind of individually. The one that I'm going to start with, and probably my favorite, is going to be downscan. So when you click the downscan button, you're going to see this view right here. This is a feature that we call fish reveal, and this is enabled by default, so you shouldn't have to do anything to turn it on. You may have to do a software update depending on how long it's been since you've done one, since it was a feature that we enabled earlier on Elite Ti1. But fish reveal is really cool. So what we used to do back in the old days is we used to do a sonar and downscan split screen. So you'd have your traditional sonar and you'd have your downscan side by side. Your traditional sonar is really good for picking up fish arches. You can see them really nice and clear here. We're all really used to picking out fish from whatever piece of structure we've got here. But it's not quite as good at getting resolution on structure, standing trees, anything that's man-made, old bridge abutments, that kind of stuff. It'll show you that stuff. You can see one coming in here. But it's not quite as good at picking out that detail as downscan is. I mean, this is an old culvert with a road that runs over the top of it. And you can see on downscan, you can actually see the opening, in really nice, clear detail. And you can't really see that as well on the traditional sonar. But because of the size and shape of the way downscan works, the fish on it aren't these great big arches, right? They're actually more true to size. So it may be a little bit more difficult for some people to pick fish out in a downscan picture. So what we did with fish reveal is we took all of the structure from downscan and we took all of those nice big fish arches from traditional sonar. We made them bigger and brighter and bolder, and then we put the two things together. So we've got all the really nice detail you can see here on this culvert from the downscan, and then I have my big wide fish arches from my sonar all on one panel. So I don't have to run that sonar plus downscan split anymore. I get both of them, the best of both worlds, right on one panel. And that's really cool. So some of the things you can adjust on downscan, there really isn't a lot, actually. I don't hardly ever adjust anything on my downscan. You will see some options for frequency depending on the transducer you have plugged in. If you're in downscan and you have the active imaging 3-in-1 transducer, it only runs one frequency, so there's not a button there to change it. There's also contrast. Contrast really just makes the brights brighter and the darks darker. And this has got an auto setting that I never take mine off of ever. But you can take that auto and you can bias it up and down a little bit. So if you want to see a little bit more detail or a little bit more of the stuff in the water column, you can leave that auto on, but bias it up a little bit. Auto will adjust it on the fly, basically, as you're changing depths or moving around. So if you take it out of the auto mode, that essentially means you're going to have to be, up and down all the time as you're changing depths. There's also a color palette in here. One of the biggest questions I get asked a lot is, what color palette do I run? And my answer to that is, we give you 10 of them for a reason. There are some people that can see some detail better in some color palettes than in others. There's even different situations where some, different sun or water condition, even sunglasses can change it a little bit. Color palettes are really whichever one you feel like you can see detail on the best. So there's a lot of guys that can see a lot in this black and white. I'm really gotten partial to this new number 10 one that we've added in, this kind of gold one. But you can set that on whatever color palette you want. It's totally up to you. You'll also get some fish reveal options in here, so you can adjust some of the sonar stuff right here from the Downscan panel. We'll talk more about that. Actually, we'll just go do that now. So in sonar, this is a regular sonar panel, and again, you see some of the same options you have here for adjusting. So range, always on auto. Frequency, this list will change depending on what transducer you have plugged in. If you have an active imaging 3-in-1, or if you have one of the HDIs plugged in, those have the ability to auto detect in the display, so they can tell your Elite Ti2 what they are, and you'll see this list adjust accordingly. For example, neither of those transducers can run 50 or low chirp, so you won't see those options here when it's set up. So you also have color line. Color line just adjusts. It's kind of a little bit like that contrast. It adjusts the brightness or the darkness of whatever the targets are. So you won't actually see really any more or less stuff. It'll just make whatever shows up, hotter or colder. Sensitivity, though, is really the main adjustment tool for traditional sonar. And again, you'll see is a big green auto button. Again, I don't ever take mine out of auto. In some situations where maybe if I'm trying to really track a jig, or really watch a bait underneath me, I might bias it up a little bit, just so that I can have an easier time seeing that kind of stuff. But again, I don't ever take my sensitivity out of auto. There's also some more options in here that if you're really advanced you can go and play with, but this is also where color palette sits. Again, just like on the Downscan, this is really up to you. Certain situations, certain ones are better. And even to certain people's eyes, certain ones look a little bit better. Let's go to the chart. So every Elite Ti2 is going to have a built-in US inland chart. So what does that mean? So that means for the entire country, it doesn't matter where you are, there are tons of lakes already pre-built in that you get right out of the box without having to put a chart card in. So you can go pretty much anywhere in the country and find a lake and see what the detail looks like. So since this is run in the simulator, since we're here in the garage, this will be on where we recorded it. So this is Skiatook Lake just outside of Tulsa. And you can see all the detail that's already built into here. There's no chart card in here, it's just the data that's there. And we talked about the zoom buttons already, so I can zoom in and out on a chart really easily just from the buttons here, or I can do it from the buttons on the bottom of the screen if those are easier for me to reach. But there's also some really cool stuff that I can do on a chart. So you'll see this black line that it's drawing, that's a trail. So a trail is basically just going to lay down everywhere I've been for a given trip. And I can manage those right here from the sidebar on the home button. Here, if I go to trails, you'll see I've got this one trail running in here with 622 points. And I can name these if I want. So if I know that I'm going to usually run from some boat ramp to one specific spot, I can color that trail a specific color, give it a name, so that I know that that's that trail for heading to that place. And like I said, I can give them a whole bunch of different colors as well. So if I know I want to see one in a different color, I can do that as well. So now you'll see this will change to a red line. So trails are really powerful. They show you everywhere you've been, especially if you're going to a lake maybe you've only been to once or twice and you don't quite remember how you ran to a spot or one or another. You'll have that trail and you can see everywhere you've been. Also, waypoints show up in a chart. So we talked a little bit about making a waypoint earlier, but we didn't really talk about what to do with them. So anytime I tap that flag button, I get the new waypoint box here, and I can give these names. So I can type in secret spot. whatever your given name is, and hit enter. Then you can actually give them a whole bunch of different icons as well. So let's say I want to pick the little green fish up here, and then hit save. So now that waypoint where I hit the button will show up right on the chart. So now I have that spot saved. And a lot of guys have a lot of different ways they manage the icons or the names, or you may put a waypoint on the start of a brush pile and on the end of a brush pile if you're going to be drifting over it, that kind of stuff, so you know where it is exactly. So there's a lot of different schools of thought on how to use waypoints. I usually just, anytime I catch a fish or anytime I find a bit of structure that I know is going to be holding fish, I'll drop a waypoint, and I'll give it an icon if I really think, oh, that's a good spot. I'll give it a certain icon. So I can also do things on my chart like measure the distance between stuff. So any point I can just hit that measure button, and now I can set this box over here and this other box over here, and now I know those two spots are 0.2 of a mile away from each other. So I can do that on anything really. I can do that on just 2 random spots. I can do that from one boat ramp to another. My 2 waypoints that we were talking about, maybe on one end of a brush pile and one on the other, I can measure that length. That's a pretty powerful tool as well. Let's go to Sidescan. So Sidescan is probably one of the most powerful fishing tools that we all have. Anybody that's got an active imaging 3-in-1 on your Elite Ti, you'll have Sidescan. So where traditional sonar or where downscan look directly beneath the boat, this Sidescan is going to look out to the left and right. So I can cover a lot of water really quickly. You'll see in this situation here, I'm getting 100 feet to either side of the boat. So that's really advantageous to me if I'm looking for a piece of structure or if I'm trying to find a spot to fish. I can cover a lot of water really quickly. And everything in this Sidescan shows up in that kind of really high resolution detail. That's what one of the benefits of active imaging. Everything is super clear. You can see individual limbs on trees. You can see individual rocks in a rock pile. All of that stuff in Sidescan is really crystal clear, and it looks like it does underwater. So this is probably the only setting in any Lowrance product that I like to have control of, and I will put on manual, and that's the range on a Sidescan. Literally everything else, if it's got an auto mode, I will leave it in auto. But this Sidescan range, I like to have control of, and I usually put it on 120. It's kind of rare that I take mine off of 120 feet to the left and 120 feet to the right. If I'm in really shallow water, under 10 feet, I might bring that in a little bit, 60, 40 feet, just so that I have, a kind of a closer picture of what I'm looking at. But usually about 120 is where I end up leaving mine. And you can see why kind of in this situation here. This is 30 feet of water, so a little bit deep, but, still not too bad. But I've got a lot of real estate to the left and right that I can see what's going on around me. And you can see here, this is an old pond that was there that Sky took as a man-made lake. So they built a dam and flooded a valley. So this was an original pond that was there before they built this lake. And I can see that on my Sidescan on a 120-foot range. If I bring the range down in, you can see that I start to lose some of that. Well, I lose it altogether. So if I don't have enough range to see it, I'm not going to be able to pick that out and know to go fish it. So range on Sidescan is really the only setting that I will take control of manually. You also have color palette again here for the third time. It's whatever one you feel like you can see the best. And again, it changes day to day. It changes situation to situation. There's a reason why we give you 10 of them. It's so you can pick whichever one you like. I've been finding myself a lot coming back to this number 10 again. You can see a little bit of a difference between it and the 9, as a lot of these really bright spots here are little fish, and they get kind of lost a little bit. You can see them on the blue, but they really pop out really nice on this gold, number 10. So that is a lot of the things you can do with an Elite Ti2. So we talked quite a bit about the first time power on. We talked about setting up a home page. We talked about sonar settings, we talked about scanning settings, and we talked about charting. So some of the other really easy setup items you have are things like your overlay data. So let's set up some overlays real quick. So you'll notice here, no matter what panel I go to, I have some data boxes over the top. So here, this is a chart, so it's giving me speed. If I go to sonar, you see it'll give me depth and water temp. So I can actually configure those. I can put them wherever I want on screen, and I can actually change what data they are. So if I tap the power key, it'll give me the edit overlay button here. And now I can take any one of these, and you'll see it's got this little blue box around it. That's the one that I'm editing. So I can take this and I can put it wherever I want on screen. So if I want to put it down here in the bottom, or if I want to put it down in the center, I can put it wherever I want. I can configure it so I can make it larger or smaller. So let's just make it huge so you can see how big you can get it, or you can make it really small. I can also put a bezel around it if I'm having a hard time seeing it, so it's in a nice little box. I can even make it an analog gauge depending on what data it is. There's really no reason to do that on sonar depth, but if you've got, say, your engine RPMs, any of that kind of stuff, you can put that in an analog as well. So let's say I want to change this from depth. So all I have to do, if I want to change one I already have set up, I just hit the change button here. And now this will give me a box where I can go in and I can pick whatever data I have, and I can change that overlay to whichever one I want it to be. So let's say I want to put my GPS position up there. So I want to always have right on screen what my latitude and longitude are. So I just changed that there. So now, again, I can put that wherever I want. But maybe I want that and I still want my depth. So all I have to do now is go to Add. And now I can pick whichever data I want from that same list again. So let's put our depth back up there. And hit save. So now all of that will be right there on that panel anytime I pull up a full screen sonar. And that is configurable for any combination of split screens. So you notice if I go back to my chart, I'm back to just my speed. Or if I go back to that 3-panel split that we made earlier, I actually have no data. So that's totally configurable for any one of the full panels, the side-by-sides, or any of your customizable splits that you want. So again, if I want to go in and I want to add anything to this 3-way split here, I'll just hit add and I can throw my depth up there, or I can throw my water temp up there. So now you'll see anytime that I pull this split screen up, I'll have those two data on the side. So we also have, some of you may have watched our webinar on the Ghost trolling motor, and we talked about some of the control functionality you have with Ghost with HDS, but you also have that with Elite Ti2 as well. So anytime you have a Ghost and you have, or a motor guide actually, so with Ghost or with motor guide trolling motors, you have the same control. You'll see this sidebar menu on the left side over here, and you'll see a button that says trolling. So if you open that up, that'll give you all of your controls to drive your Ghost or drive your motor guide. So I can actually just right from the screen, I can hit anchor. And I can either choose to anchor wherever the GPS says I am right now. So if I just hit here, it'll stop my boat and put it in anchor mode. Or I can do it on a cursor, or I can do it on a waypoint. So that waypoint we made earlier, I can actually pull it up right here, and it'll put my trolling motor in anchor mode on top of that waypoint. And that's really cool, right? So without driving the motor, without doing anything, I can just hit take me to that waypoint, and it'll do it. Once I'm there, I have the ability to jog in all 4 directions, so forward, backward, left, and right, or put it in standby. And standby will basically just shut it off so that the motor is not doing anything. Standby mode for the motor just means be still. Sorry, the guys are sending me some questions to start answer. I was reading some of them. So we talked about sliding the sidebar menu off, but I can actually make that auto hide as well. So if I go into my settings and I go down here into my advanced, there's one in here called user interface, and I can auto hide the menu. So now whenever I have a panel open, I can that sidebar menu after a few seconds will actually automatically slide off the screen, so I don't have to manually slide it. All right, so we're just over 40 minutes into this thing, so I'm sure there's some questions coming in online. So let's see what the guys got for me. Ooh, big old list. All right, here we go. Networking two units together. What is wireless shared versus N2K? Okay, so we did the setup on how to do a wireless network system between two Elite Ti2s. The things that the wireless network is going to share are going to be your traditional sonar. It's going to be any of your waypoints, and it'll be any chart cards. So if I plug a chart card into one display, it'll pop up on the other. Same thing with waypoints. I make a waypoint here, it'll pop up on the other. And I showed the source button on the sidebar menu in a sonar panel. Those are the things that are going to share over Wi-Fi. N2K, NMEA 2000 is going to be your smaller data is the way I like to think about it. Things like numbers. So if I've got a 0.1 in my boat, if I've got a ghost trolling motor, that'll be over NMEA 2000 because it's just sending messages to the motor telling it what to do. That kind of stuff. So GPS antennas, trolling motors, audio control, little smaller stuff like that are going to go over NMEA 2000. Overlay time. Okay, so we can overlay time as well. That's just another data that we can do, just like anything else. So whatever panel I want to see time on, I go to Edit Overlay, and I can just hit Add, and if I go Find Time, I can have date, I can have time, or I can have date and time. So I'll just click time, and now you'll see I've got 5:42 and 42 seconds PM as an overlay. How do I get shallow water alarm or shallow highlight on chart? Okay, so alarms, you can set up a lot of different alarms for a lot of different things. But if you go to your home menu, you'll see alarms over here on the left side. And then I've got settings over here. So this is where I can toggle any of my alarms on or off. So if I want my shallow water alarm, I'll hit it right here, and I can set at what depth do I want. So if I want to know anytime I get into, let's say, 10 feet or less, I hit OK. So now if my sonar depth shows 10 feet, this thing will throw, you guys probably saw it do the no GPS fix alarm earlier. It'll make a bunch of beeps, and it'll pop a box up at me that says, hey, you're in shallow water. And I can set that up for any of the data in here. Some of these things will take a sensor, like you won't have any autopilot stuff if you don't have a ghost trolling motor connected, or a motor guide connected. But there's a lot of different items in there you can set up an alarm for. What can I do to prevent losing bottom while on a plane? Great question. So I think this one's actually come up in every webinar as well. There's a really great YouTube video that our product experts did on installing a transducer so that you get a good depth reading on planes. So one of the biggest customer service questions that we hear a lot is, my sonar works perfect when I'm sitting still or at idle speed or up until 25, 30, whatever it is, mile an hour. And then after that, I get absolutely no reading. That is going to be an installation issue of the transducer. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go find that YouTube video. Basically, what's happening is your transducer is getting not clean water flow over the face of it. So it's making an air bubble. It's making some kind of turbulence in front of it that's blocking the signal. Sonar travels really well through water. It does not travel very well through air. So what you'll really want to look for is probably your transducer being up too high, or something in front of it causing a disruption in the water. So definitely go check out the YouTube video out. I'm sure the product experts in the chat have got the YouTube link, but that'll show you. We actually took a total scan, and we mounted it on one of our boats incorrectly, put a camera underneath to show you guys, switched up the install, and then did the same thing once we changed the install. Can you do as many splits with Ti2 as HDS Live? So you can do a lot of split screens on a lot of different, between Elite Ti2 or on HDS. Where you're going to find a difference is in the larger size HDSs, so that your 12 and your 16, they can do more splits than the littler guys can. But on this 9, you'll see I can drag in a whole bunch of different stuff. And once I try and go one too many, it'll start replacing. So this one will be, I've got 4 items I can put on screen at any time. On the larger size HDSs, I can go up to 6. Why should I want Ti2 over a hook reveal? Okay, that's another good question. So again, remember when we very first kicked off, I talked about the 3 product lines that we have in Lowrance: hook reveal, Elite Ti2, and HDS Live. And you can think of those as kind of, you know, your good, better, best scenario. So hook reveal, we pack a lot of features and give a lot of value. And those are targeted at more entry-level, you know, smaller boat anglers generally. So you're not going to have things like a touch screen. You're not going to have active imaging, high-resolution side scan. No networking whatsoever, so you can't plug in a GPS antenna. You can't share sonar or chart cards or any of that kind of stuff between them. When you move up from hook reveal to an Elite Ti2, you start to add a little bit of that. You don't get everything like you would get in an HDS, but you start to add some of those higher performance features that you would expect in an HDS level product, but in kind of a better price point. So you'll add a touchscreen, you add the wireless networking, you add active imaging, you know, just basic stuff like that. Can you split the side scan to each side with down scan in the middle? So this is a good example. So I can put anything I want in any of these splits here. So here I have 2 sonars and a down scan, and remember I can change the layout. So now I have side scan, down scan, and side scan. So here I've got my left and right, my straight down, and my left and right again, which that answers your question, but that's not going to be the way you're going to want to look at it, right? So let's say I want just my left side. So I can come into more options, and I can change my view to left only on this side, and then I can highlight my panel on my right, and I can change that to right only. So now I have, this panel has got all of my side scan to my left. I have my down scan with fish reveal in the center, and then on this panel I have all my side scan to the right. Can you demonstrate how to input a waypoint with coordinates? Yep. So again, a waypoint is really pretty simple. All I have to do is press this flag button, and I get my waypoint box. If I've got, say, a list of coordinates that a buddy gave me, or if I'm moving from some other display over to an Elite Ti2, all I have to do is press that waypoint key, and you'll see I've got the coordinates here. And now I can type in whatever north, south, east, west, whatever numbers I want. And as soon as I hit OK, it'll save that right in the box. And now I hit save, and it'll drop a waypoint wherever that spot was. How do you do live mapping on the TI? So live mapping is actually a really powerful tool. If you're on a lake or a body of water where that built-in base map doesn't have a lot of coverage, or if you're going to a new area and you want to see what contours are there, you can make your own charts. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. With Elite Ti2 or with any of the HDS products, we have a feature called Genesis Live. And so all you have to do for Genesis Live is pop an SD card in. It can be any SD card. It can have any amount of storage space, up to 32 gigs. And as soon as you pop that SD card in, you'll see an overlay option here called Genesis Live. I don't actually have one. I should have just laid one on the floor, but I don't actually have an SD card. But as soon as you pop one in, you'll see an overlay button here for Genesis Live. And as soon as you press that, it'll start laying a new chart behind you. Can you set color depth shading? So custom depth coloring, we only allow on SD cards as well, right? But I can come in here to chart options, and if I was in one that would let me do custom, I can do shading right here, and that'll let me set a whole bunch of different colors. But I also have some other depth, some other color palettes that I can adjust as well, just right here on the built-in chart. How do you hide menu or set the auto hide? I covered that one. Can you explain the steer screen? Yep. So steer is really cool, especially if you've got a ghost trolling motor connected. So if you've got it navigating you in going along a route or to a spot, this is kind of like your trip computer. So let's set up a navigation real quick. And I'll show you how it. So let's do new. We'll just set up a new route, and I'll just draw some points and save that. And now I can take this route and I can actually navigate it. So if I hit start, it'll ask me if I want to run it forward or if I want to run it reverse. So this is really, really cool. If I've run this route one time and let's say I caught a bunch of fish and I get to the end of it, I can just hit reverse and it'll turn the route back around. But let's just say run it forward, and you'll see it'll draw this kind of highway right here on the chart so that I can take my boat to the start point. But then once I hit the start point, I've got my actual path laid out in front of me on the chart. I can have that same thing on the steer screen. So this steer screen gives you your chart in kind of a 3D view. So you see your boat, you see all your contour lines, you see your trail if you've got one, but you also have that highway taking you to your navigation as well. But in addition to that, you have things like your compass ribbon across the top, so you can see the actual heading you're turning toward. But then a lot of your navigation detail as well. So you have your distance to destination, your time to destination. So that's literally just how far is it, how long is it going to take me to be there, your current speed, your current position. And then we have things like your course, which is, again, a course is just whichever direction you're driving, and your cross-track errors. So your cross-track error is really cool. So since it's laid that highway down, it knows where you should be and it knows where you're at. So that cross-track error is how far off of your highway are you. What is the difference between a soft and a hard reset? Okay, so there's two differences really in how you do them and then the things that they reset. So a soft reset is basically going to put it all back into factory settings. But it's not going to delete any of your user data, any of your waypoints or your routes or your trails, that kind of stuff. And there's two ways to do that. One, you can power it off, and you can hold down the pages key when you power it on, and that'll do a soft reset. But you can also come back into your settings menu, and right here you see a restore defaults. That effectively does the same thing. A hard reset is actually going to be power it off, hold the zoom buttons, and power it back on. And you keep holding those down while it's coming up. That will actually wipe everything out of the unit. Delete all the waypoints, any custom splits you have set up, any of that kind of stuff, it's all gone if you do a hard reset. Mark a waypoint at a cursor. Okay, so that I can mark a waypoint with a cursor from my chart, from my sonar, my side scan, or my down scan, and that's really cool, especially on side scan. So we talked earlier about that. This is that culvert, or if I keep going, scrolling back, I've got a bunch of sonar history in here I can backtrack to. This is that original pond that I was talking about earlier. And I can scroll all the way back to it, and I can see the depth at wherever the cursor is, the water temp, and the position. I can also see how far away and in what direction it is from me at the moment. But if I put the cursor on it, I can actually drop a waypoint. So that'll be waypoint 002. And as soon as I hit save, that'll drop a waypoint right on that original pond. So I can drop a waypoint from wherever the boat is. I can drop a waypoint with the cursor. So if I'm on a body of water and I know I want to go, oh, let's go fish this original pond, I put the cursor on it, and now I've just dropped a waypoint right on that one. I can do the same thing from traditional sonar as well. So if I see a cool bit of structure, like let's say this tree right here, I can put the cursor right on it. And when I'm doing it on sonar, I like to put it right down on the bottom so that I have the depth at that spot saved as well. But again, just hit that waypoint button and it's right there. Set up an iPad or a phone for wireless networking and screen mirroring. Okay, well I can't actually wireless network a phone, but I can do screen mirroring. So what I need for screen mirroring is I need the Lowrance, or I need the Navico Link app. So just go to your app store and download the Link app. Once you have that set up, you'll come in here and you can just say into your wireless settings menu, you say connect your phone and tablet. And then once you have the Link app, you can actually just point the camera at your phone at this QR code here, and it'll automatically connect you to the wireless network that the Ti2 is generating. And then once you're in the Link app, you'll see the Ti2 here, and then your screen will mirror across into the app. That looks like it, I think. So I just want to take a moment, say thanks everybody for coming and listening to the webinar. We've got a few more of these scheduled, so we'll be coming to you for the next couple of Thursdays at least. I do want to say don't forget to head over to facebook.com/anglerlabs. Just in about 4 minutes, I think it is. They're going to be starting up a new episode of Wishing I Was Fishing with host Jay Baker, sponsored by Angler Labs and Mercury, and their guest tonight is going to be Randy Howell. So that'll be really cool. If you need some more fishing content, head over to facebook.com/anglerlabs right now. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot.